I would encourage folks to find a way to put themselves out there. It's amazing just how one little conversation can lead to many more. I love the fact that here, as opposed to other places I've lived, I think I'm more apt to have someone actually randomly speak to you. Or if you're walking down the sidewalk, look you in the eye and speak to you or say good morning or something like that. Or less often to be looking directly at their phone as they're walking down the street. That still happens.
Welcome to the 4 Bars Podcast. I'm Ken Leith.
And I'm Patty Leith. We are your hosts for some compelling dialogue, encouraging our listeners to strengthen their connections
and build strong communities, lifting each other up and connecting in ways that matter.
We named the podcast 4 Bars as a reference to how hard we work to find a 4 Bars connection on our devices.
And we wondered what could happen with relationships if we worked as hard at connecting.
Let's find out. Welcome back to 4 Bars. I'm your co-host, Patty Leith.
And I'm your other co-host, Ken Leith. Pleasure to be here.
And here with us, we have Robert Burns. He is the Director of Home Region Resources for the Walton Family Foundation. If you haven't picked up his first episode with us, please feel free to take a look. Some powerful stuff in there about how he ended up in this role and really what this resource is for the communities it serves. We're going to start again today to dig deeper into community building and really dig into the things that are necessary to consider as you're doing it. So thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you for the invite back.
Yeah, so if you could tell us a little bit about watch-outs that you've seen as a community grows. I have lived here in Northwest Arkansas since 1997. I've seen an amazing amount of growth. The biggest thing we had going on the food scene was Chili's when I got here, and I've seen it go a bit further than that.
Sure.
But there are watch-outs, and so if you could speak to that a little bit as it pertains to the work that you're doing.
Yeah, growth is we are incredibly fortunate. The region is growing in just a number of ways that are just fascinating and also inspiring.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we can look at other parts of the country or even the world and say, wow, I'm not sure if we want that to happen. You could fill in the blank about what that is. But I think at the base of this is something we touched upon briefly in episode 1, which was around culture.
Yes.
It's hard to call out exactly what that is, but it is this spirit to me of people here are willing to be helpful to each other. They're willing to be connectors to each other. They're willing to say, oh, you have this great idea. You know what? I know somebody else that you probably should talk to about your idea. That spirit, it's essential to really have that permeate. You can feel it. But I also think it's incumbent that as folks move who are new to the region, part of the reason they're moving here is often that same thing. So how do they become engaged? So it's really important that as a region, we do our best to welcome newcomers, people who are just moving here, especially important to the person who may be the partner or the spouse that's coming along, the girlfriend, the boyfriend, the children. They may not have that same connectivity because someone's moving for a job. So how do they find their place? How do they find engagement? What does that look like? And turn into some of the resources, the partners we support. Another thing that I think can be hard in a region as it grows is, and we're experiencing this, and you've got the 4 biggest cities, Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, and Fayetteville. And literally you're going down 49 in that order. And increasingly, we're seeing a lot of the growth happen in some of the smaller or one-time smaller communities like Centerton, Bella Vista, Tawnytown, Farmington. And those communities are growing at a very rapid pace. Now, they don't have the same history in terms of the size of the other 4. And some of the worry in other areas comes from where people get to a sense of place where people start feeling almost that one place is better than the other.
Yes.
And it's great to me to have a variety of places that you can choose to live that fit what your need is, and that we always remember that we are a region. We are a collection of communities, and not one city doesn't make one other one better. It's like the assets that Springdale has and the assets that Rogers has, the assets that Centerton has, or the assets that a smaller community like Lincoln or Prairie Grove, those all add up to the region. So we always have to be mindful of that. And I think it's easy to sometimes slip into a place of that where you feel like one place is better than the other. I just think you think about like what makes them different, and difference can be very good.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. That's a fascinating concept too. And I think there, in many cases, can be a thought that being affiliated with or situated in one is better or worse than another, when really all of them make up the collective fabric of the region.
Yeah, and it absolutely could be. And here, if you think about this, I mean, we moved from Washington, D.C. Y'all have lived in other parts of the country.
Yeah.
A lot of people here have, but there's also lots of folks like my own family back in North Carolina. They've lived here for multiple generations, which is fantastic. I think it's really important, and I encourage folks all the time, is no matter where you live, go explore the rest of the region.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
so much to see here. I feel like still, after 3.5 years, we're still scratching the surface. And it doesn't just mean Washington and Benton counties, but the state is just incredibly rich with natural beauty. And the thing that I love, and I think you hear a lot of people talk about this, is access to nature, to outdoor rec.
Yes.
It's literally, in many cases, 5 minutes away. There are not many places you can have that, where you leave a downtown area and you're on a hiking trail or a cycle trail and you feel like you've left the city. That is a gift that I don't see us losing in the future, but we have to do everything we can to uphold it, and we need to make it approachable. Someone may not feel as comfortable on a trail. Maybe they grew up in an environment where trails just weren't something that were even possibilities. So how do you introduce folks to even the idea of getting out there? Or for someone who's never been in a canoe or a kayak before, I think folks who have more of that background, people are very kind here in so many ways, like introducing someone that hasn't had that opportunity before. You may find like you've got a passion for that you was undiscovered in the past.
Yeah, I like that. When I think about some of what you're saying there, is that if people come here, they can really experience it, but sometimes it still can be a little bit difficult making that connection, making that decision on where you want to be. From the work that you've done with the Walton Family Foundation, is there a time frame typically where people will say yes or no, this is permanent for me or this is not? And what could they do about that if they're not feeling connected yet?
Yeah, I that's a really good question. I don't have any scientific evidence.
Okay.
So this is only from experience and really that feeling. I think that first 30 days is really critical. Like, how are you feeling? And that, look, I do, everybody's got a personal responsibility around this. You can decide, and stylistically, this could also be a fit for the individual, that you're just gonna stay on your own, and that's not gonna be something you're gonna do the outreach for. But I would encourage folks to find a way to put themselves out there. And it's amazing just how one little conversation can lead to many more. I love the fact that here, as opposed to other places I've lived, I think I'm more apt to have someone actually randomly speak to you. Or if you're walking down the sidewalk, look you in the eye and speak to you, or say good morning or something like that, or less often to be looking directly at their phone as they're walking down the street. That still happens. I mean, and that's just human as well. But I think that human to human connectivity, we are meant to interact with each other. I also think that first year is really important. And one piece of advice I would give to folks, it's really easy to say, okay, I know I can go back to place X where I moved from, and the flights are direct to get there. I'm not going to spend as much time here. That just kind of creates a split for you. And I think you have to make a decision. And some people are torn by family or other job obligations like that. But when you're here, it's just trying to find some ways that appeal to you to go out. The number of things that happen here every weekend is like mind-boggling to me.
It really
for a
is.
region, and like even keeping up. But I feel like folks could find something that really resonates with them. And that to me is vitally important.
Yeah, we again, we have the internet, and the way that people are connected today is really good. You mentioned phones and being able to give data out there. I don't know. I think I get about 5 different sites a day that let me know what's going on today, tomorrow, but not just in Bentonville. They tell me what's going on in Asylum, in Springdale, in Fayetteville, all these other areas, which is fabulous. And then to your point, you have to make, okay, I've got all these choices. What am I going to do? The other thing is when we do walk around town often, you'll get a question every now and then. Could be looked at as odd, but people will walk up and go, are people truly always this friendly? And because they are.
Yeah.
And that is a thing that coming from Washington, D.C., which I love Washington, D.C., and there's some wonderful people. It is not what happens here and any other place. I think the closest I've ever been to this is Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
It's another great city.
Another great city. Yeah. I moved here in '97, as I've mentioned a couple times, but to me, the change has been substantial. But that friendliness was there then. For me, it was a move that I thought would not be super hard to do. And then when I got here and couldn't find someone to, do my hair or pet sit or, all those things that are in your fabric of that you sort of take for granted.
Sure.
Your whole network when you move is no longer there. But people were extremely friendly then, and I really do think that that a lot of that is attributed to the work that is associated with the Walton family in some way. Yes. Whether it be from Walmart to the foundation, there is a sense of respect, a sense of community, a sense of belonging that people are taught in those ecosystems, and it spreads. I will still hear phrases I learned that are respectful to use with customers and employees at Walmart. I still hear people, say it 20 years later, the same kind of phrases. And I know that we, kind of all, I think that also impacted the community because that friendly, supportive, there were less resources then, but it was very much, I didn't feel alone.
Yeah.
And I could have very well felt alone and not stayed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's that feeling of being alone, going back to your question, is like that, no matter where you live, that's a feeling that most people don't want.
And for many of us, it creates stress and then causes us to withdraw further. Sure. So then we don't put ourselves out there, right? And we teach a series called Full Signal, and one of the things that we highlight in that is the need to get comfortable saying, "Hi, I'm Patty." Yeah.
And I also say something to y'all's question earlier that I meant to mention. I think it's always incumbent to be curious. Be curious about the other person. Be curious about the other place. Don't let things. This to me is a societal challenge. I'm not speaking just about Northwest Arkansas. Just because somebody you find out has a different belief from you in something. Now, I respect people have certain boundaries and beliefs, but I think you get very curious. Like, my fundamental is that we are a whole lot more alike than we are different. Appreciate the differences, but also find out ways that we can work together. And I think there's a craving for that, just generally, but try to seek that out and don't let some of the more traditional obstacles kind of become something that allows you not to get to know that person.
Now, that's very well said.
Yeah.
And it plays itself out, unfortunately, in a lot of different places in our lives, whether it be in our workplace, where we worship, or in our city, or sometimes in our schools. But we do a lot in our businesses, and we've done it also for community, where we help people to see some of those differences are just the way you prefer to go about certain things. Like, how do I create my ideas? How do I influence people? And our styles sometimes are different. And sometimes we take little things, and when we think of the word bias, it's where we see one or two things and we apply a whole bunch of things because of one or two things that we see, versus digging deeper, having that curiosity to understand more. We hosted during the pandemic remotely this series called Shock Talks, which stands for Stop Hatred and
Offer caring and kindness. He's not real good with acronyms.
I'm not good at acronyms.
It's all right.
She is a queen.
I love him.
But one of the things we would hear in this were people that didn't know each other came in. It was open and people could just sign up and come in. But they would start talking, and we saw people from vastly different areas of the world. They came together on the fact that they were having similar problems and similar challenges.
Yeah.
And then they started, the other things they thought they maybe were concerned about the other person, they weren't. Because, we're all going through a lot of similarities. And that was one of the things that we think when communities come together is when people are willing to have that dialogue, share a story. And storytelling is one of the beautiful things in the world because that can change so many things.
Yeah.
The bias is what we fill in when we don't know the story. But we've done also a lot of work in this concept of judgment and exclusion. Like when I see this different, I judge it as something that I don't want to interact with. When you can intentionally choose a different approach, you can choose to learn. It doesn't have to change you, but it absolutely opens up the door to be more collaborative, regardless of these differences.
Yeah, and I think you have to really be conscious. You
do.
To,
it's
really
an intention.
Understand and ask yourself.
Yes.
Challenge yourself in certain cases. One of my favorite parts of the year is something that happens here that actually has gotten extended called Welcoming Week. And I think it's something we kind of do all year long, but it's a real focus on that. But it's become more Welcoming Month now, and that's done through the Northwest Arkansas Council. And that has really, I think, been a way for the communities and all the communities to put on something that has that ability, but that should be all year long. And I think it is, but that's a way to uplift elements of that. I think a lot of people would be surprised if you found out, and many people don't know this, we're home to the second largest Marshallese population outside of the Marshall Islands. And that's a real gift to have that large a group of Marshallese in the region in terms of what those individuals bring here, but also being like curiosity about like what makes Marshallese culture different. And, getting to know some of the organizations that work with the Marshallese. So there's like small examples of part of that curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would agree.
I love that. Well, so as we think about belonging in a community, what are some of the things that are important for a community to do to build that sense of belonging?
Sure. I think, part of it is this feeling of being comfortable. Does an individual feel that they can find what it is they need here? And can they find the people, the services? And I go back to the quality of life survey I mentioned, and granted, we do that. We're trying to do it more every 3 years. But I was really heartened by how people felt that they were in this region and welcome generally and felt like they're here and they're finding a way to be a part of the community. So that aspect is really key, and it's being open to what makes people different and trying to also find ways to celebrate that. And there may be things, going back to curiosity, that maybe culturally there's things that you may not have been exposed to. Like I think the fact that we have, as an example, another example is a very large and growing South Asian community that's here in Northwest Arkansas. So much so that when I was at a recent opening in Bentonville from one of the parks and found out how large the cricket league is here. It's impressive that we have that. Now, that's not exclusively South Asian, but there's a large South Asian population. It's a beautiful sport. I have to admit, I still don't completely understand it all, but I think it's a beautiful sport. And the fact that Bentonville invested into creating its first publicly owned cricket pitch is a testament to the growth. But I think that's a good example of the community. The fact that now they have played in some other areas, but now their own dedicated cricket pitch that's built to spec that is for that. But like these things can make a real difference. The fact that, someone who may be disabled can find a cycling trail here that works for them on a bike that has hand cranks. And these things make a difference in how you feel welcome. And we've just got to always making sure as things are built, created, like, is that space, is this a place where people will have that feeling? One thing I appreciate about Northwest Arkansas is a really strong sense of design, very purposeful in many cases, that really lasting impact of nature and art and how it impacts us as individuals. And that creation of the space makes that welcoming even possible. And that's contagious in this region. We see some world-class examples of it here, but it's been responsible for it really permeating more of what all the communities are now thinking about when it comes to that.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, fascinating. So as you tie that back into culture, what are some of the things that that you think are important for communities to consider when building culture?
Yeah, and culture is kind of the big culture is like, what is kind of your history? Like, where does that come from?
Right.
Like, that part of the culture is really important, and what historically has been the case. Like, how has the region built upon that? One very positive aspect to me is that Northwest Arkansas has what I would think, and when I listen to folks, a very culture that seems to be very open to new ideas and people coming in from other places. I know there are folks that have not had that experience, but you've got other regions that would love to have a culture where they could describe it. And it's the building of that, it's the reinforcement of it, it's the idea that as folks are new to the area, that they really try to embrace things that could make them part of the community. And you have to do it in a way that both is right for you, timing wise, but also finding the organization that makes sense for you, or organizations, or a way that you can give back, or the friend that you meet, or the person that you're starting to get to know that you end up having coffee with and get to know them even further.
We do a lot of work in the organizational culture building side of things. And I think that a lot of the fundamentals apply to community. Culture is what people do when no one's looking, and people do more of the things they're rewarded for, right? So if you think about that, you can intentionally build a culture versus just letting it happen. And I think that's important to keep in mind in all aspects of culture, because we all want to feel a part of something that is nurturing us. And if you just let it happen, it doesn't always happen that way. So we get into kind of 3 stages of it. We're mentioning it, so you start talking about it. It's trending. A lot of people are starting to talk about it, or it's leading. We're doing it. We're living it. We're teaching people how to do it. We're hiring for it. We're training for it. That's kind of the evolution of culture. And I think communities can do it very similarly.
Yeah, and I think, I said something earlier about the focus that we've had on creating spaces that are welcoming.
Yes.
Those spaces have a really important role, because those are the spaces, the kind of original model of the square.
Yes.
Squares, we have a lot of those areas like a square or a park in a lot of our cities, even where the greenways are coming through, and there are places that have actually become more de facto parks. And those spaces are just where communities congregate. It's where the festivals happen, the farmers market, a lot of pop-up music festivals. And communities, the cities, the groups that are working in the cities, like, how do you activate those spaces? They can be passive and still be great spaces to meet people, but if you introduce like a performance of some sort, or you have a farmer's market and you're taking that space, or a art market, or a festival that's coming, those spaces form to areas where people can actually meet each other. It's lowering that boundary.
No, I think that's very, very true. And we, again, there are many more that are being developed even today, and that will continue to be able to bring people together. And that's so important. On this topic, I'll share a story really quickly that last year, after the tornado last year, we were helping out because we had done work at our house and stuff, and we just wanted to go do some work at some other places. So we went to Kohler, where the cycling park is there, and we were working all day, talking to different people we'd never met before, side by side, everyone with a common cause, which is to help clean up, help bring the region back and make it as vibrant as it was. And when we were done, there was this young gentleman, maybe 30-ish or so, who I was working next to down in this gully. So he walked out with Patty and I, and as we're walking out, we're talking to him and asking questions, curiosity.
Yeah.
And you could tell didn't sound like he'd been from here, been from another part of the world. And he said, well, he came from Chicago, but he originally was from Lithuania. His mom moved him when he was about 13, he and his brother. And but he had since grown up, got married, was living in Chicago, and he and his wife made a plan, which I think they went to Charlotte, they went to Austin and one other place, and they came here. And they decided this would be the place where they would relocate to. The interesting thing about what he said to us as we're walking out, I forget how it came up, but it's like, so what keeps you here, and what do you like about it, and what is it that really, is something you would want to see other people do? And he brought up one thing. He goes, I came here because I liked the culture. I fell in love with what I saw and what I heard. And then the important part, he goes, but what I came here for was to integrate into this culture and community. He goes, I've seen people already since I've been here who sometimes want to, and I've seen in other places, they want to move somewhere, but then they want to change it to what they would like it to be. He goes, I'm here to be a member of the community. And I was like, wow, that I was kind of blown away.
Yeah, it was pretty insightful.
Yeah. Pretty distinctive way to think about it too.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think if we go into change with the understanding that that it's a give and take, and we can be very positively impacted by what is different and not necessarily try to change it. And then because we're a part of it, things also elevate because there's this whole entrepreneurial spirit that takes place with different ideas that come from different backgrounds.
And a lot of times the new ideas, the new experiences, the new folks can introduce a lot of wonderful elements into the culture.
Yes.
So I was thinking it's important we're not closed.
Yeah.
I don't think we are.
Agreed.
And like the areas of what you were just speaking about in yourself, like even the story is like folks will bring their gifts, their talents, their treasure here, embrace that, and find ways that becomes part of it. It kind of goes back to even like your example of the food. If you look at just the variety of food that's present here now in terms of restaurant scene,
Yes.
how you can go all over the region and find amazing possibilities, just the choice. And the fact that there's a lot of restaurants here I would put up against big cities around the country.
Yeah,
The quality. I love the increasing focus on local food systems. That and the young farmers and farmers that have been here for generations, and trying to figure out more ways to get their agriculture into the food pipeline.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's very
local, but it also ties you back into the land and the culture here.
And supports the economy, which is really what a community cannot thrive without that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, would you share what you see for this region in the next 5 to 10 years? What are your dreams for it?
Yeah, the region, I believe, is going to continue to grow in a number of ways, and for me, that brings about a lot of positive outlook for the future. It also brings about some of the challenges we have touched on before. But I think, to me, a few things that would come out that excite me is we have some really wonderful regional examples of things that work well as a region. Think about our airport, XNA. You think about the fact that we have a regional community college. We have actually a regional water system that I think most people may not know as much about.
Yes.
As we think about our infrastructure challenges, is how do we function more as a region? In many cases, to solve those, and we have some really good examples to build upon. But that growth is offering us a healthy challenge when it comes to our infrastructure. Housing excites me in terms of where I see the possibility for more and different forms of workforce housing, both on the renter and the ownership side. So that's important. I keep hoping we see much more investment from capital, venture capital, and other forms to come to this region to support the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the companies that are here. We're seeing amazing growth in healthcare and what that is going to afford. The whole conversation around whole health and what that means, not only from what typically we think of as health, but what does that mean for the future of the region, very much excites me. I believe we're becoming a much more connected region in terms of our networks of trails and the advents coming to some of the road improvements that are happening that once upon a time it would have been hard to imagine going down the side of a particular road, but now you can actually do that. You can do that feeling safe, and you can actually be able to do that in a really encouraging way. And this is going to continue to be a job creation region, and that's outstanding. I'm excited about the possibility of growing out greater talent of the schools and thinking about, well, what I think is really important is like, how do people find the career pathway that's right for them? Introducing at an early age, helping in the middle school, junior high, high school level to kind of figure out like, where do you want to go, and cultivating that. And that also provides some room for ways for people to engage, because one thing I forgot to mention in one of our conversations was the importance of mentorship. Lots of people can be a mentor. But that excites me about the future of the region. I just see all this wonderful possibility. You look at the investment that's occurring, the growth, and throughout all of the cities. I think we have a good competitive spirit here too, that also affords us a lot of advantages. So I find like multiple reasons to be excited. I'm very bullish on the future.
Oh, that's awesome.
And thinking about like what it means, and the people that continue to be a part of the region, and the people that continue to move here excite me too. And I just think it goes back to both our conversations, is how do folks continue to be part of the community, and the way that makes the most sense for them.
And taps into the things that matter. Right. Impact, the ability to make an impact is critical, right, for all of us. And it feels so good to be able to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Robert, thank you so much. This has been an amazing couple of sessions to talk through the things that make this great community as great as it is, and ways that it's going to even get better. But I also think we left the viewers and listeners with some great touch points about how you can get more involved, how to shape culture, how to partner, and really just how to become better. So thank you.
Great. Thank you both.
Thank you. And we'll look forward to the future. Definitely.
Excellent.
And thank you everyone for joining. And we'd love it if you could follow and subscribe and learn more here at 4 Bars. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, and one of the things we'll encourage you to do is go to 4barspodcast.com, where we have resources from our speakers' talks that can help you learn more. So you'll see some resources from Robert's talks in that site pretty soon after the episode drops. So we'll see you soon. Bye. The 4 Bars podcast has been brought to you by Edges Inc., a growth advisory firm based in Bentonville, Arkansas. I founded the company in 2001.
Edges promotes growth of people, companies, and ideas. Our team collaboration tool, called Interface Methods, is a basis for teams to work together more collaboratively, understand each other, and accept differences and address challenges together.
We also started a nonprofit called Unform Your Bias. We teach kids and their adult influencers how to utilize storytelling as a means to reduce bias in the world. We hope you'll check us out, subscribe to our podcast, and look at our websites.